Echo Vault, Episode 3. Episode 1. A German farm. 6 people dead. A killer who stayed for days and cooked breakfast in a house full of bodies. Never identified. Episode 2. A British spy, a locked bag, a padlock fastened from the outside. His own agency didn't notice he was gone for a week. Never explained. Tonight, we go somewhere different. Not a single crime scene. Not one victim. An entire country. 13,000 people. 2 years of sightings. Military radar. F-16 fighter jets scrambled. And a government that held a press conference at NATO headquarters to say, officially, on the record, that what happened over Belgium between 1989 and 1990 could not be explained by any known aircraft, any known technology, or any natural phenomenon they could identify. This is the Belgian UFO Wave. And unlike most of what gets called a UFO case, this one has the paperwork. November 29th, 1989, 5:30 in the evening. 2 Belgian police officers, Heinrich Nicole and Hubert von Montigny, are on routine patrol near the town of Eupen in eastern Belgium, 7 miles from the German border. The sky is clear. The countryside is flat. It is a perfectly ordinary Tuesday evening. Then they see it. Above the fields ahead of them, hanging in the air, is an object unlike anything either officer has ever seen. It is large, very large. They will later estimate it at roughly the size of a football field. Flat and triangular. At each corner, a powerful white spotlight pointed toward the ground, so bright, Nicole will later tell investigators, that you could read by it from below. In the center, a red light, pulsating slowly. It makes no sound. It is not moving. It is simply hovering, stationary in the air over the fields of eastern Belgium on a clear November evening, with no visible means of staying airborne. They call their dispatcher. Their dispatcher tells them other calls are already coming in. The object is being seen from multiple locations simultaneously. That night, over 140 separate reports were filed in eastern Belgium. Police officers, farmers, motorists, families looking out their windows, all describing the same thing. A large, silent, triangular craft moving slowly across the sky, or not moving at all. Just hanging there, watching. It was the beginning of what would become the most thoroughly documented and officially acknowledged UFO incident in history. The Belgian UFO Wave lasted from November 1989 to April 1990. Over that period, more than 13,000 people filed formal witness statements. More than 2,600 of those were collected and verified by civilian researchers working alongside the Belgian military. And on the night of March 30th, 1990, the Belgian Air Force scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets to intercept one of the objects. What happened next was documented, radar verified, and officially released to the public by the Belgian military. And it has never been explained. Between November 1989 and April 1990, Belgium was experiencing something that had no precedent in modern European history. Night after night, across every province of a country roughly the size of Wales, people were seeing the same thing. Large, silent, triangular craft moving at low altitude over cities, towns, motorways, and farmland. The descriptions were strikingly consistent across thousands of independent witnesses who had no contact with each other. Flat and triangular. 3 white lights at the corners. A red or orange pulsating light at the center. Moving slowly, sometimes hovering completely still, and then accelerating away without sound. The Belgian government took this seriously in a way that almost no government ever has. The Belgian Air Force did not dismiss the reports. They did not classify them. Instead, they entered into a formal collaboration with SOBEPS, the Belgian Society for the Study of Space Phenomena, a civilian research organization. The military shared radar data. SOBEPS shared witness reports. Together, they built what became the most comprehensively documented UAP case the world had ever seen. By the peak of the wave in early 1990, the reports were coming from everywhere. Police officers in Liège, air traffic controllers near Brussels, military personnel on duty, teachers, doctors, farmers. An amateur astronomer who tracked one of the objects for 11 minutes through his telescope and found he couldn't explain what he was looking at. The Belgian Prime Minister was briefed. The Belgian Minister of Defense made a public statement acknowledging the reports were genuine and unexplained. This was not fringe speculation. This was official government acknowledgement that something real was happening in Belgian airspace, and that nobody knew what it was. Then came March 30th, 1990, the night everything changed. The Belgian military had been preparing for this. They had an agreement in place. If any sighting was simultaneously confirmed by both ground witnesses and a radar station, F-16s would scramble immediately. On the night of March 30th, 1990, at approximately 11 p.m., the Control Reporting Center at Glons in eastern Belgium began receiving reports from multiple police units on the ground. At the same time, their radar screens were showing something. An unidentified object, moving erratically, performing maneuvers that no aircraft they knew of could perform. The order was given. 2 F-16 fighters launched from Beauchamp Air Base. What followed was a 75-minute engagement that the Belgian Air Force documented in a detailed chronological report, a report they then made public. Major General Wilfried de Brouwer, Chief of Operations, presented it at a press conference at NATO headquarters in Brussels. This was not a leaked document, not a Freedom of Information disclosure. The Belgian military chose to tell the world what had happened. The F-16s obtained radar lock on the target multiple times. 9 separate radar contacts were recorded during the engagement. Each time a lock was achieved, the object performed maneuvers that the Belgian Air Force's own report described as inconsistent with any known aircraft. In one recorded sequence, the object dropped from 3,000 meters to 1,700 meters in approximately 1 second. That is a descent of 1,300 meters in 1 second. At those speeds, at that altitude, a sonic boom would be expected. None was heard. The object then reduced its speed to almost zero, from extreme velocity to a near hover in seconds. No known aircraft of that era or this one can perform those maneuvers. On another radar track, the object accelerated from 280 kilometers per hour to 1,800 kilometers per hour in seconds, then decelerated back to nearly stationary. No engine signature, no exhaust, no sound. The pilots flew for 75 minutes. They saw nothing with their eyes. The radar saw it. The ground radar saw it. The object was there. And then it wasn't. At 1 a.m., the F-16s returned to base. Major General de Brouwer stood at NATO headquarters and said publicly that the Belgian Air Force had no explanation, that the object's performance was incompatible with any known aircraft, that they had ruled out every conventional explanation they could think of: stealth aircraft, weather balloons, atmospheric phenomena, equipment malfunction. Ruled out all of them. He said something was there. They did not know what. A serious investigation of the Belgian wave has to include what the skeptics say. And in this case, some of what they say is important. The most famous piece of visual evidence from the Belgian wave, the Petit Richin photograph showing a triangular craft with 3 lights, was a hoax. In 2011, a Belgian man came forward and admitted he had fabricated it using a piece of polystyrene foam with small light bulbs attached. The photograph had circulated worldwide for 20 years as the defining visual of the Belgian wave. It was fake. That matters. You should know it. And it is worth noting that none of the serious researchers who have studied this case rely on the photograph, because the photograph was never the strongest evidence anyway. On the radar data, skeptics, including researcher Brian Dunning, have pointed out that some of the radar contacts may have been the result of atmospheric interference called Bragg scattering, a known phenomenon that can create false returns on radar systems. Dunning also noted that analysis of the F-16 radar locks showed that on 3 occasions, the pilots had locked onto each other rather than an external object. These are legitimate points. The Belgian Air Force's own report acknowledged the locks on each other. The atmospheric interference is a real phenomenon. But here is what the skeptical account cannot fully explain. The Belgian Air Force ruled out Bragg scattering after cross-verifying data across multiple independent radar systems simultaneously. Ground radar at Glans, ground radar at Semerzaka, the F-16 onboard radar. 3 separate systems in 3 separate locations tracking the same object at the same time. Atmospheric interference of that kind does not produce identical false returns across 3 independent systems simultaneously. The Belgian Air Force said so themselves. This was not an amateur conclusion. It was the official position of a NATO member country's military, presented publicly. The hoax photograph was fake. Some radar contacts were explainable, and something still cannot be explained. 3 main theories have been seriously proposed for what the Belgian wave actually was. None of them fully fits the evidence. Theory 1. Classified American stealth aircraft. The F-117 Nighthawk and B-2 Spirit, both triangular, both black, both developed in the 1980s, were the obvious first candidates. The Belgian Air Force investigated this directly. They contacted the United States Department of Defense and asked. The DoD confirmed no American stealth aircraft were operating over Belgium during the wave period. A declassified U.S. Department of Defense memo from March 1990, obtained later, confirmed that Belgian commanders had eliminated American test flight involvement and that NATO's interest in the Belgian reports was genuine. Both the F-117 and B-2 also produce significant sonic signatures and engine noise. The Belgian objects were reported as silent, repeatedly by thousands of witnesses. Theory 2. Mass hysteria. Once a UFO story gets into the news, people see things they would otherwise dismiss. They read about a triangular craft and then notice an unfamiliar light in the sky and connect the two. This is a documented psychological phenomenon. Mark Hallett, a Belgian researcher, argued in 1992 that the wave was largely a media-driven delusion. But mass hysteria does not explain the radar returns. Mass hysteria does not appear on 3 simultaneous military radar systems. The police officers who first reported the object on November 29, 1989, had no prior news coverage to influence them. The wave had not yet begun. Theory 3. Something genuinely unknown. Major General de Brouwer's final assessment, made publicly at NATO headquarters, was that the Belgian Air Force had encountered something real, something structured, something that performed maneuvers beyond the capability of any known aircraft, and that they had no explanation for what it was. He did not say alien. He said unknown. He said the evidence was insufficient to explain it, and that the evidence was also too strong to dismiss. 35 years later, no government has produced an explanation. No engineer has come forward to say they built it. No country has claimed it. On July 11, 1990, Major General Wilfried de Brouwer stood at a podium at NATO headquarters in Brussels and presented the Belgian Air Force's official findings on the wave. He showed the radar data. He described the F-16 engagement. He explained what the military had ruled out and what it had been unable to rule out. He said the Belgian Air Force was satisfied that something real had been present in Belgian airspace. He said that something had performed maneuvers inconsistent with any known technology. And he said they did not know what it was. That press conference is on the record. The radar data is on the record. The witness statements, over 2,600 of them, collected and verified, are on the record. The U.S. Department of Defense memo acknowledging Belgian military's elimination of American test flights is declassified and available. The Belgian wave ended in April 1990, as quietly as it had begun. The objects stopped appearing. The reports stopped coming in. The sky over Belgium went back to being an ordinary sky. No country ever claimed the craft. No engineer ever explained the technology. No government ever produced a document saying, "It was ours, here is what it was, here is how it worked." 13,000 witnesses. 2 years. Military radar across 3 systems. F-16s scrambled. A NATO general on record saying he had no explanation. And then, silence.
13,000 witnesses. Military radar on 3 simultaneous systems. F-16 scrambled. A NATO general on record. No explanation. That is the Belgian UFO Wave. That's Echo Vault, Episode 3. Every claim in this video comes from the official Belgian Air Force record, the NATO press conference transcript, declassified U.S. Department of Defense documents, and verified witness statements collected by SOBEPS. All source links are in the description. Next week, we go to England. December 1980. A pine forest in Suffolk, next to a U.S. Air Force base that stored nuclear weapons. 3 nights of encounters. A base commander who recorded audio as he approached the object. Radiation readings in the soil that should not exist. And a memo that the British government tried to keep classified for 20 years. Rendlesham Forest. Next Thursday. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Until then, keep asking questions.